Yo, what is up, you guys? I know it has been a long time since you've seen a video from me, but today we are going to be discussing another change that KI is adding for absolutely no reason to break something that's not really broken. For those of you guys who are in the test realm Discord, I'm sure you guys saw this, or if you're just in Discords in the community around, you probably saw this message from KM the other day. Basically, these are going to be the new universal resist cap maxes for every school. If you guys do not understand what this means, that means if you're on a fire wizard, you are no longer going to be able to get any more than 60 resist to any school. Ice, you're going to only get 80 to any school, and so on and so on. So pretty straightforward. The current system, if you guys do not know how it works now, is basically like fire can get no more than, let's say, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but let's say they can't get more than like 68 death resist, right? And then to schools that don't have higher DPP, like Ice, they can't get more than like 65. Or like for Life, they can't get more than 61. Stuff like that. Those are not the exact numbers how they work now, but along those lines, that the higher the DPP the school, the higher their resist cap for each school is, depending on the intended amount of resist that the school is supposed to have. So like Ice can get up to, or Balance can get up to like 86 storm resist, but they can only get 79 life resist. Stuff like that. That's essentially how it works. But this is what KI is now proposing, to give certain schools universal stat maxes so they cannot get any more than these resist values. Now, there's a few problems with this. Obviously, for those of you guys who are currently doing the Azteca raid, it is very clear what the issues are with this, is because a lot of your hitters are double and triple warding because of how hard these bosses hit. And you're hitting stat caps perfectly to how they are now. But for schools like Life, Myth, Death, Ice, schools like that, where your stat caps are literally at where your meta resist is. So let's look at this again. So Life's stat cap now is going to be 71 on universal resist, meaning I can no longer on a Life Wizard get more than 71 resist to any school. So obviously I have 71 resist with the meta gear on, so these two wards are now gone. The two wards are completely useless. I cannot use them anymore. Now, for someone who is casual playing this game and doesn't like wards and stuff like that, you might look at this as a good thing. You might look at it as, okay, well, I don't have to worry about wards anymore. Sniping is going to be irrelevant, stuff like that. So you might think it's a good thing, but you're soon going to see how this benefits schools that have healing even more. Obviously, we've seen some nerfs to healing, but some not. It is still very possible, considering the fact that Life is going to be getting 5,000 more HP than they have now if you run the new meta jewels that are coming out in Wallaroo. So basically, this setup, I have 71 resist with no pins to my boots or hats in terms of resist, and I have double ward. So let's say I take off the double ward. I have 71 universal resist, and I take off my healing pins. I have nothing to socket on my pins other than block. And I have 700 block. So blocking pins is going to do next to nothing for me on a Life. And that is the problem, is because we have such limited things to put in tier sockets and shield sockets. So when we see the next world and we see all of these schools that rely so heavily on shield pens, which is every school pretty much except for Storm and Life, who just use outgoing, you're going to see these schools have just blank sockets. Because what do you put there? If you already hit the stat cap shown in this image, what are you going to put in your sockets? And that is just my complaint in terms of availability to shield sockets. It's not even talking about how this makes no sense. They're adding so many counter matchups in this game and making it to where you can't even add ward or resist to the schools that you get destroyed by. Death counters Life, so having that 15 resist is a huge help. And all this is going to do is encourage people to play fast, because if you try to play slow and you can't rely on resist, you're gonna get smoked. And by playing fast, I mean PvE strats. People are just going to be trap stacking and blade stacking, because why wouldn't you? There's limits to copies of counters, but there's not really limits to traps. You can pack an entire side deck of traps, and you cannot pack an entire side deck of counters. It doesn't make sense. So that's all you're gonna see people do. A normal gameplay, like every single normal mono school gameplay, not even just mono school, they all ward to something, right? OT Fire. If you want to play OT Fire, if you don't want to trap stack, you need Death and Storm ward. Or you lose, because you auto lose to Death and you auto lose to Storm. because Storm has OT counters that will destroy you, and Death has weaknesses that will destroy you, because Myth or Fire does not really have amazing weakness counters other than using like Glacial Fortress and Vex, which don't really do anything for them. So without those wards, you lose that matchup. And even then, if you Myth and Fire, you need Balance Ward, or Balance Pen. But now those two are basically useless because using, those pens are going to put you over these stat caps. You're not going to be able to get the full value out of it because Fire, for example, gets like 56 uni-res. With like the most meta setup, I see people get up to 61. So you're not going to be able to balance pen. Even on a Myth, if you're doing Myth with Fire Dual School, you can no longer use your Storm or balance pens. Or wards, anything. Storm, Fire Ward, you can't do that. So this is just eliminating ward completely and forcing you to dual school. But by forcing you to dual school, you will just then lose to schools that counter both of them. Because like Life and Storm both get countered by Death. And I have no way of warding to Death now. So if I wanted to do Lorm, which is kind of like Life's main synergy, with the pens and shit like that, as you've seen in the new Hunhow wands and the Bubble wands, they want you to dual school with Storm. Storm loses to Death, Life loses to Death. Especially if you're not healing, which I know a lot of people are going to be abandoning healing with the new update because of all the healing changes. If you guys haven't seen those, basically the heal over time on Goat Monk is getting slashed into half. Same with Caddy. Regen and Pigsy are getting limited to 4 copies in the main deck with no reshuffle. So healing is getting a huge nerf. So Life is then going to lose even harder to Death, and the main school that KI is pushing Life to dual school into also loses to Death. And with these new stat caps, you're having no way to ward to Death. So all we're going to see is 1-2 schools prevail even harder in the meta than it is right now, because you're going to have no way of getting extra resist. So the schools you naturally lose to, you have no way of mitigating the damage they do to you. And I don't think the devs realize that, because I hate to say it again, but they don't play their own game. They don't play PvP specifically. They're making maybe these stat caps to make raids harder, whatever, that's fine. You need to separate raids and PvP. They do not balance equally. You cannot, make PvE mobs fight like PvP players and make it balanced. And you can't make PvP players form and do stats that are obtained by mobs. It doesn't work. You need players to be able to fluctuate their stats. And by doing this, someone should be able to go fully into balance resist, run like 90 balance resist, and win against balance, but have be at a disadvantage for every school. That should be the way the game works. You should have to take risks and have drawbacks from that. But now all you're going to see is just normal, double damage breaker, double res mighty pets. That's all people are going to run, because you don't need pips. You don't really need accuracy on your pets. With some schools will run sharp shot because you have, the free talent and you want to dual school, whatever. But most schools are just going to run double damage, double resist, breaker mighty. And that's it. There's going to be no variation between stats. Again, that's what we're falling back into. You're not going to see wards on pets. You're not going to see pens socketed, because there's no point. You're not getting any of that resist actually working towards your resist. That's just because of stat scaling. Now, before the way resist worked is if you went in with 100 resist and they pierced 50 of it, 50 resist left over is going to be left from your actual, physical resist because of the resist scaling. But now with how PvP works now, that doesn't really exist. If I run 100 storm resist, I'm only queuing with like 86. It caps off. I don't even think it's that high for Life. But they completely defeated the entire purpose of, all of these pets that people have made. Which honestly, I'm not against a meta where warding is not amazing, but you have to balance your game first. The only reason people are warding is because the matchups are unbalanced. It's just how it is. So if you guys have any other thoughts on this topic, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments, DM me on Discord. With that being said, if you guys have any other video ideas you'd like from me, please let me know. I'm very open to making more videos in the future, and I will see you guys in the next one.